Who are you, really? When you're alone, in the quiet of your own mind? Who is the person that resides there? We all hold a fundamental belief, a perception that feels as real as the ground beneath our feet. That our identity, our collection of values, beliefs, and quirks is a creation of our own unique journey. A sovereign self, built brick by brick through personal experience and individual choice. But what if that self, the very core of who you believe you are, is quietly being shaped by forces you rarely acknowledge? What if the convictions you hold most dear were not born in the solitude of your own mind, but were instead whispered to you, adopted from a blueprint you never even knew you were following? This is the fracture between our perception of self and the reality of our nature. The premise we will explore today is both simple and unsettling. We perceive ourselves as independent architects of our identity, but in reality, we are profoundly defined by the groups we belong to. This is the unspoken power of social identity. It's a force that operates beneath the surface of our consciousness, capable of shifting our perceptions, our emotions, and even our moral compass without our explicit consent. In this video, we will not just talk about this force. We will dissect it. We will journey through the science of why your brain is hardwired to think in terms of us and them. And by the end, our promise to you is a new kind of clarity. A mental toolkit to finally distinguish between the beliefs that are truly yours and those you've borrowed from the groups that define you. To begin this journey, we must first examine the story we tell ourselves. It's a story of autonomy, of independence, of a singular self charting its own course through the vast sea of life. This is the starting point of our shared perception. This is the myth of the sovereign self. It's a cornerstone of modern Western thought, celebrated in art, literature, and our own internal monologue. Think of the artist alone in their studio, the entrepreneur building an empire from a garage, the philosopher seeking truth in solitude. These are our heroes. They represent an ideal, that the most authentic version of ourselves is forged in the fires of individuality, free from the influence of the crowd. This perception suggests our identity is like a unique sculpture. We envision ourselves as the solitary artist, holding the chisel of our will and the hammer of our experience. We stand before a raw block of marble, our potential, and with deliberate, personal strikes, we chip away everything that is not us, slowly revealing a form that is singular and self-created. Every decision, from the career we pursue to the partner we choose, to the hobbies that fill our weekends, feels like a conscious mark we make upon this sculpture. Consider the story of Anna, a successful surgeon. If you ask her why she chose her path, her answer is immediate and confident. She speaks of a deep, personal fascination with human anatomy that began in childhood, a passion for problem solving, and an innate desire to help people in their most vulnerable moments. She'll recount the long nights of solitary study, the personal sacrifices, the sheer force of her own will that propelled her through the rigors of medical school. In her mind, and in the story she tells, her career is a testament to her individual traits and choices. Her identity as a healer is a statue she carved herself. But if we pull back the curtain, we might notice a detail she omits, perhaps because it seems trivial to her. We might see that her father was a surgeon, her mother a nurse, her grandfather a respected family doctor. Her family dinners were filled with discussions of medical cases. Her childhood heroes were figures from medical journals, and the praise she received from her family was always greatest when she excelled in science. Suddenly, the myth of the solitary sculptor begins to crumble. Was her passion purely her own? Or was it nurtured and incentivized by her earliest and most important social group? Was her choice to endure the hardship of medical school a product of pure inner strength? Or was it reinforced by the powerful, unspoken expectation that this was her path? Her identity is no less valid, her skills no less real. But the origin of that identity is far more complex than the simple story of individual choice. Her sculpture was not carved in a vacuum. It was shaped in a workshop, surrounded by the subtle, guiding hands of her family. This is the illusion of the sovereign self, the deeply held belief that we are the sole authors of our lives, when in fact, we are all co-writing our stories with the invisible ink of our group. Understanding this is the first step to seeing the fracture between perception and reality. If the sovereign self is the perception, then the reality is what psychologists call the group imperative. This isn't a flaw in our character or a sign of weakness. It is a fundamental operating principle of the human mind. The theory that unlocks this reality was developed in the 1970s by Henri Tajfel and John Turner. It's called social identity theory, and it provides a stunningly clear blueprint for how our group memberships build our sense of self. The theory is based on a simple, three-step mental process that runs automatically, constantly, and unconsciously. First comes social categorization. Your brain is a sense-making machine in a world of infinite information. To avoid being overwhelmed, it creates shortcuts. It sorts everything into categories. Not just objects, chairs, trees, cars, but people. We categorize people based on age, nationality, profession, sports team affiliation, political beliefs, and 1,000 other markers. Critically, this isn't just something we do to others. We do it to ourselves. The moment you think of yourself as a fan of a certain team, a resident of a particular city, or an employee of a specific company, you have engaged in social categorization. Second is social identification. Once you've placed yourself in a category, you begin to adopt the identity of that group. You internalize its values, its beliefs, and its behaviors. The group's identity becomes your identity. The pronoun I starts to become intertwined with the pronoun we. The group's successes feel like your successes. Its failures feel like your failures. Your sense of self is no longer just personal, it is now also social. The final step is social comparison. To give our newfound social identity meaning and value, we instinctively compare our group to others. And critically, we are biased. We tend to compare in a way that makes our group, the in-group, look better than the out-group. This isn't necessarily born from malice. It's about building self-esteem. If our group is good, and we are part of that group, then we are good. Imagine your mind is a vast library, and every person you meet is a book. A purely individualistic approach would require you to read every single book cover to cover to understand it, an impossible task. Instead, social identity theory shows that our brain works like a librarian with a very efficient, if crude, filing system. It doesn't file each book individually. It creates large sections: history, science, fiction, fantasy. When a new book arrives, the librarian quickly glances at the cover and puts it in a section. Ah, a person wearing a lab coat. They go in the science section. Someone with a Boston Red Sox cap? They go in the rival fans section. This categorization is fast and saves enormous mental energy. You then identify which section you belong to. I am a science book. And to feel good about your place in the library, you tell yourself that the science section is, of course, the most logical, important, and well-written section of all. Tajfel himself demonstrated this with his famous minimal group experiments. He showed that he could assign schoolboys to a group based on something as arbitrary as whether they preferred a painting by Klee or Kandinsky, and within minutes, the boys would start allocating more rewards to members of their own group, even though they had never met them. They had no history, no shared goals, nothing in common but a meaningless label. That's all it took. The group imperative is not a choice. It's a reflex. Why is this group imperative so powerful? Why does the mind cling to us with such tenacity? The answer doesn't lie in modern culture, but in the ancient architecture of our brain. Our group-oriented nature is a biological echo of a deep evolutionary past. For our ancestors living on the savannah, belonging was not a matter of feeling good. It was a matter of life and death. To be part of a cohesive tribe meant access to food, protection from predators, and help in raising offspring. To be cast out to face the wilderness alone was a death sentence. This ancient survival calculus is hardwired into our neurobiology. Think of it as your brain's ancient alarm system. This system was designed with one primary directive: do whatever it takes to remain in good standing with the tribe. It works using a simple, powerful feedback loop of pain and reward. When you act in a way that strengthens your bond with the group, agreeing with its consensus, defending it against criticism, sharing its emotions, your brain rewards you with a cocktail of neurochemicals. You get a hit of dopamine, the molecule of reward and motivation. You get a surge of oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, which fosters feelings of trust and connection. These chemicals make you feel good, safe, and secure. This is the brain's way of saying, yes, do that again. This is keeping you alive. Conversely, the alarm system is brutally effective at preventing dissent. The prospect of being ostracized, of being rejected by our group, triggers the same regions of the brain that process physical pain, specifically the anterior cingulate cortex. The social rejection of being unfriended online or given the cold shoulder at work doesn't just hurt metaphorically. Your brain processes it as a genuine physical threat. That feeling of anxiety you get before you voice a dissenting opinion in a meeting? That is the ancient alarm blaring, warning you that you are risking the modern equivalent of exile. Neuroscientists have witnessed this process in real time. In fMRI studies, they've shown that when we see someone from our in-group succeed, our brain's reward centers light up as if we succeeded ourselves. When we see a member of an out-group succeed, the response is muted, or in some cases, the brain regions associated with envy and pain can activate. Our brain is literally wired to feel good about us, winning and to be, at best, indifferent to them. This isn't a conscious choice. It's a deeply embedded biological reflex that served our ancestors well. But in a complex modern world filled with diverse groups and abstract identities like corporations, political parties, and online communities, this ancient alarm system can be hijacked, leading us to make choices and hold beliefs that are not a product of rational thought, but of a deep, primal need to belong. This powerful biological need to belong comes at a cost. The price is a subtle but significant distortion in our ability to think clearly and objectively. Loyalty to the group, while feeling virtuous, can make us cognitively blind, morally flexible, and dangerously overconfident. It's a high price to pay, and most of the time, we don't even realize we're paying it. The first part of this price is a cognitive bias known as in-group favoritism. It's a mental shortcut that whispers a simple, seductive rule into our ear. What our group does is good. What their group does is suspect. This bias acts like a pair of invisible goggles that we are handed the moment we join a group. These goggles tint everything associated with our in-group in a warm, positive light, while casting a dark, critical shadow on everything related to an out-group. After a while, we forget we are even wearing them. We believe the world simply is as we see it, through these distorted lenses. We see our group's flaws as endearing quirks, while the same flaws in an out-group are seen as proof of their inferiority. We judge our group by its intentions, and other groups by their actions. This cognitive blindness then seeps into our moral reasoning. Researcher Jonathan Haidt's work on the moral mind suggests that our moral judgments are driven by a handful of core intuitions, one of which is loyalty. For many, the moral foundation of loyalty to the tribe can become so dominant that it overrides other foundations, like fairness or care. This explains how good people can stand by and silently condone unethical behavior within their own company, political party, or community. Challenging the group feels like a betrayal, a profound moral violation of loyalty, and so they rationalize the wrongdoing. Their moral compass hasn't been broken. It has been recalibrated by the magnetic pull of the group, pointing not towards a universal true north of ethics, but towards whatever direction protects the tribe. This leads to the final, dangerous consequence: overconfidence. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect in a group setting. The Dunning-Kruger effect states that the least competent individuals in a domain are often the most confident in their abilities. When a group becomes an echo chamber, it insulates its members from dissenting opinions and corrective feedback. Within this chamber, even the most poorly informed ideas are repeated, reinforced, and validated by the group. A member who holds a flawed belief is not corrected. They are applauded. Their certainty grows not because they have examined the evidence, but because their social environment has rewarded them for holding the belief. This is why the most fervent, dogmatic, and unshakable members of any group are often those who are least familiar with the nuances of the issue or the arguments of the other side. Their loyalty has blinded them, their morals have been bent to serve the group, and their echo chamber has given them a feeling of absolute certainty that they have not earned. This group influence isn't just an abstract process of cognition and morals. It's a felt, visceral experience. It manifests in the way we physically feel, sharing triumphs and anxieties as if they were our own. The scientific mechanism for this is known as emotional contagion, and it's powered by a remarkable feature of our brain, mirror neuron. When you see someone smile, a part of your brain simulates the physical act of smiling, which in turn triggers the feeling of happiness in you. You don't just see the emotion, you catch it. This process is amplified dramatically within our in-groups because we inherently pay more attention to and feel more empathy for those we identify as us. Think of your emotional state as being connected to a Wi-Fi network. You are constantly broadcasting and receiving signal. For most people, strangers and out-group members, the connection is like a weak, unsecured public network. You might notice their signal, but it doesn't really affect your system. But your in-group, they have the password to your private network. Their emotional signals come through with full strength, connecting directly to your internal router. A wave of anxiety in your team at work becomes your anxiety. A surge of triumphant joy from your favorite sports team's victory feels like a personal achievement. Their emotions are downloaded directly into your own experience. Let's make this concrete with a story. Imagine a large tech company that decides to reorganize its software division. Previously, all engineers worked as one large, collaborative unit. But to foster innovation, they split the division into two teams, Team Phoenix and Team Titan. At first, nothing changes. They are the same people, colleagues who have worked together for years. Then, the company gives them different colored lanyards, red for Phoenix, blue for Titan. They are assigned to different floors. A friendly competition is announced for a major project. Slowly, insidiously, the culture changes. The teams start eating lunch separately. The casual exchange of ideas in the hallway dwindles. A member of Team Phoenix encounters a problem, and instead of asking a former colleague who is now on Team Titan, she struggles alone, not wanting to give the competition an advantage. When Team Titan achieves a small breakthrough, the members of Team Phoenix feel a palpable sting of envy and frustration, even though the success benefits the company as a whole. Conversely, when a rumor spreads that the Phoenix project is behind schedule, there's a quiet, unspoken satisfaction in the Titan workspace. The people are the same. Their skills are the same. But the simple, arbitrary act of creating an us and a them with a colored lanyard has fundamentally altered their emotional reality and their behavior. They have caught the emotions of their respective teams. The success of a fellow Titan feels good. The success of a Phoenix feels like a threat. This is emotional contagion in action, driven by a manufactured social identity. It's proof that who we are and how we feel can be changed by something as simple as the color of the uniform we wear. So, we are faced with a profound dilemma. Our perception tells us we are sovereign individuals, yet the reality of our biology and psychology shows us that we are deeply and often unconsciously shaped by our groups. We are creatures of the tribe. This can feel like a trap, a sentence to a life of unseen influence. But what if it isn't? What if the simple act of seeing the mechanism is the first step to reclaiming our own minds? The resolution to this fracture between perception and reality is not to abandon our groups. They are essential to our survival and well-being. The resolution is to engage with them consciously. And for that, we need a new mental model. Let's call it the identity ledger. Think of it like a financial ledger, a tool used to bring clarity and order to a complex system of assets and liabilities. In finance, this process is essential for health and solvency. In identity, it is essential for clarity and autonomy. Your identity, right now, is a mix of beliefs you have consciously earned and beliefs you have unconsciously borrowed. The identity ledger is a method for auditing them. It's a private, internal process of accounting for your own mind. Let's start with the first column, assets, or owned beliefs. These are the core tenets of your identity that you have forged through personal experience, critical thought, and deliberate choice. They are the beliefs that have been pressure tested and still hold true for you. To find them, you must ask yourself rigorous questions. What is a belief you hold that you have had to defend, even amongst friends or family? What value is so core to you that you would risk social disapproval to uphold it? Think of a time you changed your mind on a major issue. What was the evidence that convinced you? The belief you hold now, the one that cost you something to adopt, is likely an owned asset. These beliefs feel solid. They are not propped up by the agreement of others. They are yours. The process of identifying them is slow and requires deep honesty, but it's the foundation of a truly sovereign self. Now, let's look at the second column, liabilities, or borrowed beliefs. These are the ideas, opinions, and emotional reactions you have passively absorbed from your groups. They are not inherently bad. Many group norms are positive and useful, but they are not truly yours until you have consciously examined them. Identifying these requires a different kind of honesty, a willingness to see your own biases. Ask yourself, Which of my strongest opinions did I form almost immediately after joining a new group or community? When a certain topic comes up, do I feel a flash of defensive anger before I even consider the argument? Can I articulate the strongest arguments for the opposing viewpoint? Or do I only know my group's talking points? If your certainty about an issue is directly proportional to your group's consensus on it, it might be a borrowed belief. It's an entry in your mental ledger that was written by someone else's hand. The goal of the identity ledger is not to end up with zero liabilities. That's impossible and undesirable. The goal is reconciliation. In accounting, this means ensuring the books are accurate. In identity, it means consciously examining each borrowed belief. You pick one up. You look at it from all sides. You ask, setting aside what my group thinks, do I, based on my own reason and values, agree with this? If the answer is yes, you move it to the asset column. You have converted a loan into equity. It is now an owned belief. If the answer is no, or I don't have enough information, you acknowledge it as a borrowed belief that requires more thought. This single act of awareness is transformative. It's the moment you stop being a passive recipient of group culture and become an active, conscious participant. You are no longer just wearing the team jersey. You are deciding whether you actually agree with the team's strategy. This is the aha moment. Your identity is not a fixed sculpture. It's a dynamic ledger, and you have just been given the pen. Understanding the power of social identity and the concept of the identity ledger is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a call to action. It's an invitation to begin the most important work there is, the work of knowing yourself. This knowledge doesn't lead to isolation. It leads to a more honest and intentional form of connection. We want to leave you with one practical exercise, a single step you can take to begin this process. Later today, or tomorrow, find a few moments of genuine quiet. Choose one strong belief you hold. It could be about politics, a social issue, your career path, anything that feels central to you. Now, with radical honesty, trace its origin. When did you first form this belief? Who was around you? What group were you a part of? Your family, your university friends, your colleagues, an online community? Try to pinpoint the moment it solidified. Then, ask the critical question: if I had been born into a different family, in a different country, with a different circle of friends, would I still hold this exact belief with the same unshakable certainty? The answer can be unsettling, and that is okay. The goal of this exercise is not to force you to abandon your beliefs or your communities. The goal is awareness. It's to loosen the unconscious grip of the group, just enough for you to insert your own conscious thought. The ultimate aim is to be a member of a group without becoming a prisoner of its perceptions. To love your family without adopting all their biases. To be a dedicated employee without sacrificing your own moral compass. To be a proud citizen without falling into cognitive blindness. True self-knowledge lies in that space. The space where you can clearly see where you end and your group begins. And in that clarity, you will find a more authentic, more resilient, and truer version of yourself.